Lately, there's a statement that's been out there all over the place. It's a quote from a lot of people. It said, Trump's been right about everything. And if you think about it, I really have.
Really? Donald Trump putting forward a video only way Donald Trump can. And what's got him being all boastful and self-serving yet again? Let's find out what he's talking about.
Our foreign policy establishment keeps trying to pull the world into conflict with a nuclear-armed Russia based on the lie that Russia represents our greatest threat. But the greatest threat to Western civilization today is not Russia. It's probably, more than anything else, ourselves and some of the horrible USA-hating people that represent us.
Donald Trump came out firing here, talking about how it's not Russia, it's the United States that's potentially the biggest threat to Western civilization. Something I'm sure many conservatives want nothing to do with that statement, but Donald Trump will be there as long as he's conceding to Russia in that same statement. You guys are beginning to see where this is going. So let's let him continue to talk about who is it that's driving this constant drumbeat of war and international conflicts that the United States is in. Let's let him discuss.
Every day this proxy battle in Ukraine continues, we risk global war. We must be absolutely clear that our objective is to immediately have a total cessation of hostilities. All shooting has to stop. This is the central issue. We need peace without delay. In addition, there must also be a complete commitment to dismantling the entire globalist neocon establishment that is perpetually dragging us into endless wars, pretending to fight for freedom and democracy abroad, while they turn us into a third world country and a third world dictatorship.
Okay, wait a second. Neocons are turning us to a third world country, and they're pushing this constant drumbeat of war and getting involved in international conflict. This is coming from Donald Trump. This is crazy. What does this have to do with him being self-serving here again, though? He's gone after the neocons, and they're the ones that are the reasons for the war. Who else might he go after? Let's listen to some more.
It's the abolition of our national borders. It's the failure to police our own cities. It's the destruction of the rule of law from within. It's the collapse of the nuclear family and fertility rates like nobody can believe is happening. It's the Marxists who would have us become a godless nation worshiping at the altar of race and gender and environment. And it's the globalist class that has made us totally dependent on China and other foreign countries that basically hate us. These globalists want to squander all of America's strength, blood, and treasure, chasing monsters and phantoms overseas while keeping us distracted from the havoc they're creating right here at home. These forces are doing more damage to America than Russia and China could ever have dreamed. Evicting this sick and corrupt establishment is the monumental task for the next president. And I am the only one who can do it. I'm the only one that can get the job done.
I think that's where we're going here. So Donald Trump starts by saying the issues we have, these international conflicts all the time. Neocons are pushing us to these points. There's point number one. He's different than them. I think that scribbles his name in there in the primary because then he's at least gets other Republicans. But then he pivots directly and goes to race, gender, environment. Some were slaves to figuring out, trying to work together or maybe advance our society. He has grievances when it comes to the left. I guess that's the check mark for a general election. The bottom line, as you heard at the back end of that whole thing, Miranda, there is, I alone can defend you. I alone can save you. Sounds a lot like what he said before. It's the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, well, I guess he only had so much time. He had to touch on all of the points in about one sentence against the left. All the points of which, none of which really have anything to do with the war in Ukraine. The collapse of the the nuclear family. First of all, even if it was collapsing, which it's not, the nuclear family is doing just fine in this country. Even if it was collapsing, I don't think it's threatening the Western world. at all. Don't think the altar of race or gender or environment has anything to do with the ongoing war. And the ongoing war has to do with, I mean, it has a lot of factors involved in it. But I mean, people make money off of war. People make money off of the mass weapons production that they're sending all the weapons over to Ukraine. And so there's a lot of factors that contribute to the war in Ukraine and are keeping peace deals from happening. Unfortunately, but none of the, gender, race, or environmental causes that people are fighting for in America are really contributing to that. But like I said, he only had so much time. He had to make sure he had to check all his boxes for all of his standard viewers.
100%. The things don't have to make sense as long as you hit the right trigger words. I mean, oh, that's right. We hate that stuff as well. But apparently his point in that was we're distracted by all of these real issues. I'm sorry, he calls these fake issues back at home while the neocons are pushing perpetual war over everywhere else. And he alone can help. But throughout the whole thing, you never heard about how he alone can help. He just says, trust me, like he always says, come on. And you know who came out unscathed yet again, crazy, is Russia, involved in one of these international conflicts. He has a track record of letting Vladimir Putin and Russia off the hook. Remember this?
Just now, President Putin denied having anything to do with the election interference in 2016. Every US intelligence agency has concluded that Russia did. My first question for you, sir, is who do you believe?
My people came to me, Dan Coates came to me and some others. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this, I don't see any reason why it would be. So I have great confidence in my intelligence people, but I will tell you that President Putin was extremely strong and powerful in his denial today.
It's probably one of the weakest moments in presidential history as he stands next to Vladimir Putin and takes his word over his intelligence here at home because it served him well. So I don't think he sees it as a weak point. Why is it he's always doing this? Again, as I point out, there's the track record. What is it that's possibly going on now? Well, The Guardian and many other publications pointed this out. Trump media executives were worried over murky $8 million loans. Let's look at that subtitle there. Financing with suspected Russian ties came at a critical time as the company was running out of cash after a planned merger. If you guys remember now, the merger with Truth Social, the overarching company for them, was trying to do this blank check company merger so they could have more cash on hand. That began to get investigated, so it was held up. He needed money or else they were gonna run and fall out of business yet again. But still, they got this $8 million from two separate entities that happened to be directly connected to Vladimir Putin. And some of those executives on these companies were concerned about it. And they're not really talking much about how that happened, even as they were saying, hey, maybe we should give this money back. But the bottom line was, let's keep this whole thing going. So it seems, Miranda, Putin just might have Trump by the those yet again.
Yeah, and it's definitely just right out of the Trump playbook. And it's really difficult to see how his fans and his voters and his viewer base don't really understand that every time he comes out as a champion for the people, there's always something very, very selfish behind it. And he's using people's feelings about the war in Ukraine in order to serve his own specific financial needs and the problems that he's facing.
And this was to fund Truth Social, you guys. Truth Social, the one that has all those issues with it, the ones that he's using as his own separate Twitter so he can push as many election lies and I alone can save the world type of lies. He wasted all this money on that. I mean, I guess it helped him. It fed his ego.